Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. It is a spin-off of the website and book review site of Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast is about book reviews, a writer's muse, a book's peruse, author interviews, and literary news. Welcome to the new year, where new things may happen with this. I hope you all enjoy, and thank you for listening.
Good evening, listeners. I'm Amy, and welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Today we are joined by an author. Please introduce yourself and let the audience know how they can connect with you.
Oh, hi, everybody, and thank you, Amy, for having me. My name's Bill Hoolihan, but I go under an author name of B. William Hoolihan, and you can find me at that website, B. William Hoolihan with 2 O's. I also have a Facebook page under the similar name and an Instagram account. If anybody wants to reach out, and I'd love to talk to fans, etc., my email address is bwh, again, bwilliamhoolihan.com. So it's bwh@bwilliamhoolihan.com.
And I will have that information in the description of this show when it goes live. So
Great.
That way everybody will know how to connect with you.
Right.
So you are a multi-genre author, and you published your debut novel, So Others May Live, and I read it and loved it. So why don't we start with what inspired you to, take your pen in hand and start writing?
I've always loved to write, but, I was thinking about that earlier. English teachers got in the way, they don't sometimes encourage you to be creative. And I drifted in college into accounting and CPA stuff, and I didn't write for decades. But about 5 years ago, the bug bit me. I've got a crazy friend, and his phrase is, if not, when? And he doesn't live by it, but I try to. So I picked up my pen a couple of years ago, and I just started writing. And I'm from South Florida, and one of the things that intrigued me was this creek that we go through to go fishing. It's called Caesar Creek. And finally, after my 300th trip through there, I said, who the heck is Caesar? And I looked him up. He was a pirate. And so I concocted my first story about a pirate named Black Caesar. And then the second one, I finished and published it. We're talking about So Others May Live. There's a little bit of that in the backstory. And so I think at this point in my life, I just had so much information and storytelling inside me that I had to put it on paper. And I felt like people would enjoy what I'm doing. And I'm starting to find that out to be true. I'm getting a lot of favorable, reviews and input from So Others May Live.
That's incredible, especially for a debut novel. And I must say, I read it, and if I hadn't known, I would have thought this was like your 10th novel, not your first. And congratulations on getting it published.
Thank you. It is my 10th novel in my head.
Well, then there you go. That works.
Exactly.
So, and one of the things that I really liked about the story, well, I liked a lot of things. I liked the characters. I liked that, everybody knew a guy to do something for them. But right. I found it was best that you're not that guy that actually does the stuff, because, that doesn't always end good for that person. But I also, you brought in the United States Coast Guard, and a lot of times when an author brings in, military personnel or something like that, it's usually the Marines or the Army. I mean, right. Maybe sometimes, but, it's very rare to see Coast Guard in action. I saw it in the movie Deep Horizon not that long ago, but that was based off a true story. So, right. But when they were doing stuff, I'm like, oh, I know about them now. So I learned a lot about the Coast Guard that I didn't know.
Mhm.
So how did you get a lot of your information about the Coast Guard? I mean, you had to have done some research, or do you know somebody like firsthand?
Well, first of all, I grew up in South Florida, and I've had a boat since I was 13. And so I've had many interactions, favorable and unfavorable, with the Coast Guard, but generally favorable. One of my favorite stories is we were coming back from the Bahamas about 2 decades ago. It's 10-foot seas. I'm in a small boat with a bunch of buddies of mine, and it's rough, and we're the only boat out there, and it was probably not a great idea, but we're very experienced boaters. And a 140-foot Coast Guard vessel came up on us, and captain got me on the radio, and he said, what are you doing out here? What are your intentions? Prepare to be boarded. And it dawned on me, the only stupid people to be out in this kind of, minor hurricane were probably drug runners. And, but, it was dangerous to be boarded at that point in time. So I got back on the radio, and I said, Captain, you're sitting there on an air-conditioned bridge with a steaming cup of coffee, and me and my buddies are getting our butts beat out here. Please reconsider your actions. We just want to get home. It's really bad out here. And he starts laughing. He goes, get on out of here. So, yeah, I always kind of found that humor can diffuse a situation, but I've always had an interest in the Coast Guard. I've seen them. I've seen their helicopters go by. I read about their rescues. I decided, SEALs have been done. Marines have been done. They're fantastic people. I've even done some strange training with Navy SEALs, believe it or not. But I just decided the Coast Guard was the way to go. I had also met a Coast Guard marksman 10 years ago at the Miami base, and he told me the favorite thing he lived for in life was to say, step away from your engines. I'm going to put a hole in them. His eyes lit up when he said that. I'm like, this guy's a little off, but you have to be. So that, in a roundabout way, that's how I came to write about the Coast Guard.
That is really, really cool. I mean, like I said, I learned a lot about them, and it just kind of made me want to learn more. And, and your book is filled with action, humor. There's some levity, even during serious situations when one of your characters are like they think that they're going to die, or they're at that moment where they're not sure how it's going to turn out. And and Rick is your main character, but I really love Billy. Just something wild and crazy, but yet in some ways there's a sensibility to him, but there's definitely that wildness, and also bringing out like, oh yeah, let's do this. Don't worry, I know a guy. We'll take care of that.
Right. Everybody knows a Billy, I think, or has a Billy in their mind. And I may be living vicariously through him because I think I can tend to be a little bit wild, but I'm also sensible. I don't, Billy may cross the line sometimes. I may be divulging too much, but I'll give you an example of his wildness with sensibility. I've started the second book in the series, Coastie and the Keys. It's called Poison Wind, and hopefully I'm not revealing too much, but early on, he befriends a retired coastie who's not doing well. The end of his life is near, and he's in a wheelchair. And Billy breaks him out of the nursing home and fills his IV bags up with rum and tequila. And so Billy's friends are like, you can't do that to the man. And Billy, winks at him like it's a foe. He didn't do it. He filled it with water or saline. But the guy thinks he's all jacked up on tequila and rum. Yeah. And so he has the time of his life. So there's Billy being the wild and crazy guy, but with a wink, he's like, I'm not going to cross too far across the line. So yeah, Billy, I love the Billy character. He will always be around. And, I agree with you. He's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he definitely is. And it's like he and Rick complement each other, even though Rick can get a little crazy at times too. In some ways he is able to focus where Billy's like, okay, no, let's just do this.
You know what I'm anxious to do? I'm really, again, this is going to be part of at least a 5, probably a 10 book series. And my Billy character is, it will evolve, but it's very, very, I have I don't know, his guidelines in place. It's Rick that I need to explore. Rick is sort of a blank palette, and he can be very serious. He was a marksman in the Coast Guard, and he gets thrown into a crazy situation. But I'm really looking forward into developing his character over the next couple of novels. He has a relationship with Lieutenant Jill, and I'm not, I have an idea where I want to go with that, but that's the fun thing about writing. I can't draw, but the piece of paper is my palette.
Yeah.
And the freedom to go in different directions. I got his uncle, I have his parents, I have way crazy ways. And already I literally have novels, 1 through 5 planned out. It's just sitting down and, typing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely understand. And when you, and I found this with myself that, you may write lots of other books and then other books that aren't about, say, Rick and Billy, but when you need a story or you want one or you get one, you always go back to your first and the characters that you put in that. And I did the same thing. I thought I was going to do a trilogy after my first book was published, but then it ended up over the years, I got 67 volumes out of it. And then finally I'm like, okay, there's no more else to go. And I had to say goodbye, but that doesn't mean that I don't love those characters. So Billy and Rick will always be with you.
Yeah. And there's inspirations, particularly behind Billy. I won't reveal them now, maybe another time, but there's people in your life, and I've been blessed to run across an incredible stream of interesting characters in my life. And, you'll see, we're going to release Pirate's Promise in the next couple of weeks. Maybe that's another podcast. I don't know. But there's a character named George in there. And George, literally was a real person in my life. And, truth is stranger than fiction. And
Yeah.
there's some George and Billy, but, they're different. But, I've been blessed to just come across, a wild cast of characters since the day I was born through college and more. And, now they're inspiring me in good ways.
And that's really cool because, you take inspiration wherever you can get it. And sometimes, just observing how people like act and react to situations, and then you kind of in your head, you can just pretty much see the words come across about what their actions are doing. I do that all the time. I observe people, and then in my head, I'm writing what I think that, could be a story about those two people or something like that. So, it's pretty amazing. But you travel around Florida a lot, and, you have that luxury of taking in all that is, Florida. You go to the Keys, you travel and go wherever your mind takes you. So you are one of the fortunate ones that get to actually, you could sit on a beach or sit on your boat and write, and, you're bringing in your, your environment. So I think that is, you're pretty fortunate to have something like that as like your backscape.
Oh, absolutely. And, I've taken advantage. I realize I've had, I don't know, the ability to travel and go on adventures. I haven't been to, Australia or anything, but I'm happy with South Florida and the Bahamas and Central America. And it feeds into my writing. And one of the things I tried to impart was so others may live. A lot of authors will talk about fishing and diving and this or that, and I feel like they're making it up. And, I'm a advanced scuba diver and spear hunter and fisherman. I've won fishing tournaments, and not to brag, but I'm trying to really impart to the reader what's it really like, or really like to rig a bait, or really be on the ocean and looking for a certain type of bird that can lead you to a certain type of fish. And then I'll try to, regale you with cooking your catch. I like to cook. I'm a guy. I'm not like, it's not French cooking, but it's, it's the basics. It'll keep you alive. But I know a lot of cooking secrets, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to immerse the reader in that type of ocean and keys lifestyle, not from a creative standpoint, but from a real standpoint.
Oh yeah. And, someone living in Alaska will be able to read your book and feel like they are in Florida. And I mean, I'm from upstate New York, so but in reading it, it was like it took me to the Keys, and I've only seen the Keys on TV. So
if you recall, we have a character called Barefoot Joe, and he's a bush pilot from Alaska who had too many run-ins with grizzly bears. So he looks at the map and sees that the Keys are the furthest away from grizzly bears in the world. So he came on down, and the crazy thing is Barefoot Joe was inspired by a pilot, the seaplane pilot that I flew with. He got out of the plane, he was barefoot, and his name was Joe. And I'm like, well, like it or not, you just became a character. And I said, why the heck do you fly barefoot? Is it because you want to feel the pedals and be more responsive to how the airplane feels? He goes, yep, absolutely. I'm like, all right, I trust you.
Wow.
Right or
fly
wrong.
an airplane, but it's not legal to fly to drive your car barefoot.
No, and the airplane looked new on the outside, but on the inside, it looked like something from Raiders of the Lost Ark. But, I looked in his eyes and I trusted him. So we had a blast. We flew all over the Keys, landed on the water, went to Port Jefferson. It was, I think we say on the back of one of the books, you never, be careful if you talk to me. You might end up in a book.
That's true. So readers beware. If you never know.
Right.
You could be a character. I tell my kids that when they argue, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to kill you off in my next book.
Ooh.
They're like, what? But they love it. They're not big readers, but they like it when I read to them from my work. So, they're always just so busy and things like that. But
right.
Yeah, it's like, you don't want to make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. I'm not going to turn into the Incredible Hulk, but I'm going to write a story about you, and you may not survive.
I'm trying to figure out a way how to work all my friends in, and some others may live. I worked a couple of them in, but first names only. And I have this good friend, Bob. I've known him since I was 7, and he lived next door to a famous author named James Hall. And he went to James one day. He says, how come you never, include me in your book? In the next book, like in the first couple of pages, he named my friend first and last name, and he killed him on the third page. It was very well written, though.
Yeah, I've had friends that I kind of wrote about. I changed the name slightly. It rhymed with their real name. And then I'm like, I just wanted to let you know that you're dying in the next chapter.
That's
They're
quite
like, okay.
I really enjoy finding names for characters, even if they're mundane, like, a gas station attendant. I generate so much angst over creating good names. And to me, that's paramount. And I'm still, I've named Rick and I've named Billy, but there's other characters that come. And, I think I enjoyed near the end that we introduced a Coast Guard commander named Cutter. I thought that was a cool name because it ties to the Coast Guard. A cutter's a large boat. And, I never just want to do them willy-nilly. I want to have a lot of thought behind them and have their name somewhat tied to their profession or their personality. So sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. We have a character called D Toxin, which, I think is funny, but I don't think most people get it.
I get it. And I can understand. I mean, I like using, what I call old fashioned names, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and, names that, most people don't name their kids unless they're family names.
Right.
And I mean, when you think of like an older woman named Maud or Dorothy or something like that, but you have to remember that person was a kid and that's when they named her. I
Right.
mean, when I was born and then went to school, there was like 3 Amy's in my class.
Oh, wow.
So, there's like the popular names but mine, I was actually named after the initials of my great grandmother. Her
Mm-hmm.
initials were AMY, and that's how I got my name. It just happened to be one of those popular names that everybody had when I went to school.
Hmm.
And then sometimes it's just, I like to name Dalton, and sometimes I use it for a first name, sometimes I use it as a last name.
Sure.
And I like that, I've had characters that I named them, but their name didn't fit the character. So
Right.
it was like, like I tried to name somebody Emma and it didn't, like, the first couple chapters, I'm like, this just doesn't fit her.
Right.
Emma sounds to me like a soft woman, and this woman was like one of those, I'm going to kick your butt, get out of my way kind of women. So I had to change her name.
Hmm.
But it's always, whatever you think of. I named characters. I have one, his name is Edge. I just thought that was a pretty cool name. And another one I named Essence. So there's, sometimes I just use adjectives for their names or whatever would fit them, so.
You could have a male female twin. One's Evan and the other's Essence, and they'd be Evanescence.
Exactly.
Hang on, let me write that down.
I love that.
I think they're going to be bad people, but
That's okay. That would be perfect. They could be like, Bonnie and Clyde except for siblings.
Or maybe first name Evan, last name Essence. Evanescence. Ooh, this is good. Let's keep going.
It is a lot of fun with, you play around with it, and sometimes I'm like, so I'll look up like adjectives that stand out, and I still use a thesaurus, even though you can use pretty much any AI, but
Right.
I like looking at the thesaurus and grasping names and thinking of who these people are.
Right.
So some people can keep writing and like they'll say insert name here. I can't do that. I have to name my character before I move forward.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I couldn't do that. I don't know about you, but for my books, I have spreadsheets. It's hard to keep a character's name. And sometimes I may change a character's name. So, thank goodness for, file replace or word replace.
Yeah.
But I need, to keep it right, I need timelines and weather seasons, and I need, I don't have to be incredibly accurate, but I like it to be, representative of the real world. I can't have, Christmas before Halloween or anything.
Right. And I do the same thing with all my books, but especially the one that has 67 volumes. I have all the characters' names, and then if I happen to have one guy that ends up sharing a name with someone else, I kill that guy off. You can't have like 2 Johns. But then, it also keeps track of who they are, where they live. I drew a map of the town that all these people lived in because it's actually, the story revolves around residents in a town that I made up. So I even mapped it out so that way I know, okay, this is the street the grocery store's on. This is where you go to the funeral. Here's the morgue. Things like that.
Fun.
But I really, I want to thank you for, being on my show today. It was, so enjoyable.
You're getting rid of me? Is this something I said? Come on.
No, you're great.
I'm on a behavior here. I'm really, really trying.
You are on a roll, I tell you. And you have
pleasure
more
was mine.
stories. I'm sorry?
The pleasure was mine.
Oh, well, I'm glad. And you have more stories like you mentioned. By the time this airs, the Pirate's Promise will be out.
Okay.
And you also, I'm just going to give you a little plug here. You have some children's books that are, some have been released and some will be released. And those are very interesting and personal to you. So I wish you luck on your Uncle George Stories series.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to close out the show. If you wish for you or your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast. Thank you for listening. Be safe, be well, and always be kind. And I'm just gonna... Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. If you are looking to be on the podcast or looking for a book review, you can go to amysbookshelfreviews.com and look for the appropriate navigational menu. Again, thank you all for listening and being a supporter of this podcast and of the Amy's Bookshelf Reviews, professional reviewers of books and audiobooks. Thank you all. Be safe and be well.